awesome guest this week is the amazing Emma, creator of ROGUEMAKER, and now multiple Audioverse Award finalists.
Yeah, I do believe that they have 25 audio
25
drama
nominations.
What is it?
It's the entire cast.
I can't remember the name of the awards. Audioverse?
Audioverse.
Yes, like at least the entire cast at least once as well. So many award finalists. And it is fantastic. And what else do we want to say about Emma other than she's amazing and she has a penguin?
She's amazing. She has a penguin.
A scientist.
An actual space scientist doing actual space science.
She did a very, very good live show that we're going to talk about.
Because we got to hang out with her and Bonnie in person at the weekend at Audio Drama Hub Podfest, where we also got to spend time with Team Kildare, at least 1.5 of whom are currently in the chat. Also, many of whom are multiple Audioverse Award finalists.
So let's put Emma on the screen. We're going to put on our headphones here, and then we will chat some more with Emma. How's that sound? Let's see. Hello.
Hello.
Penguin.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Good. How are you? Long time no see.
Yeah,
I know. It's been
4 days, maybe 5.
Exactly. A very long
right?
time.
Yeah.
And
wow.
I heard you had like an epic, lengthy journey getting back home and everything.
On the way there, it was bad. The way back was fine.
Okay, good. Good.
But yeah, it had been raining a whole bunch last week. I live in Scotland. It had been raining a whole bunch. And so I wasn't in extreme weather mode or anything because it was just rain, but it was continuous rain. And rain on the tracks means the trains cannot go.
Because why would a country constantly soaked in moisture have an infrastructure system capable of dealing with precipitation from the sky?
Yeah. So I didn't check anything before I went to the train station, and I arrive at the train station, the whole board says canceled. So that was the start of it. Luckily, that was the night before I actually had to travel. I was just trying to do leg 1 and get to Bonnie's. But yeah, a 4.5-hour train ride became 7 hours. So that it was, in a weird way, insult to injury when one of the presentations at Audio Drama Hub Podfest involved making train noises with live Foley.
And you're like, no, not again.
Am I still on the train?
It was very
Did I pass out?
Very good train noises with live Foley. And like the premise of the play was that the train starts speaking to a passenger as well. And it's like, oh no, you can't deal with this. But anyway, hi, I'm here.
Hello.
I'm Emma Johanna Puranen. This is Emma Penguin.
Best name.
She says hi.
Magnificent.
If anyone thought I had a real penguin, I'm sorry you're disappointed.
Oh no, that is absolutely the level of real penguin we need. So
yeah.
Probably much cleaner as well.
Yeah, and she has a scarf.
I mean, yes. Exactly. Yeah.
So how did you get on an Audio Drama Hub Podfest?
Is that Hub
Audio Drama Hub Podfest?
Because I always want to say Audio Drama Podfest Hub, and I'm like, no, that's bad.
And then I always put a Palooza on the end.
I'm just calling it Podpalooza. Sorry, Sarah, you have to rename it next year.
It's a bit of a word salad, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, I kept forgetting what it was called and just referring it to people as the event in High Wycombe.
That's very English. The event.
The event in High Wycombe.
The event.
The event. We're having an event. Yes, exactly.
Yes, we had an event in High Wycombe. It was really good. I'm very new to the audio drama scene overall, so it had been an entirely virtual experience for me, aside from meeting up with like people one-on-one in person, like Bonnie or Oren, because they live nearby. So meeting that many audio drama creators in person was a lot, but in a very good way. So many little icons online and internet squares became real people, and I learned how tall everyone was.
Like you are also very tall.
I'm very tall. Yes.
Yes, precisely. Ask Naomi. She'll talk about how illegally tall you all are. For sure.
Yeah, the three of us on stage for the live show, which I should probably discuss, and was probably why you were asking me the question of how the event was.
You're right on par with our okay, let's talk about a thing, right? You're doing that.
Naomi's on point. Illegal.
I should actually see if I can show people the pictures
Well, Bonnie wore platforms, so they were a little bit cheating, but the result was we were all roughly the same height on the stage.
Yeah, it worked very well.
They were also very stealthy platforms. I didn't actually notice them until the second day.
Mm-hmm.
I was very impressed with those.
Yeah. But yeah, we did a live show.
Nice.
It was really, really cool. It was very fun.
It made Wendy cry. Which you didn't know at the time because she was sniffling very quietly, so she wouldn't interrupt you.
Yeah, she was tweeting from the relative privacy of the back row. Yeah. I mean, I want to apologize.
Says that live show took out 2/3 of the stream mod, so it took. Yes, you did a very good job emotionally. It gave many people feelings.
You know, there have been a weird number of places in my life where making people cry is a good thing, and this is one of them. So, I'm taking those as the compliments they are.
It's a huge compliment. There's a quote from an author friend of mine that I like, which I'm going to butcher, which is like, in any other profession, it would be seen as cruelty. But in fiction, one of the highest compliments is to make someone cry.
Mm-hmm.
And audio fiction is exactly the same as prose fiction. And you succeeded beautifully. You made lots of people very sniffly.
It's the same in LARP, too. It's often considered a good thing if your character has cried in the LARP, which is the other huge hobby of mine. But like doing the live show was fascinating because like Bonnie has a lot of theater experience. Alasdair, I'm actually less certain on your theater experience, but I guarantee it's more than me because that was my first time acting on a stage.
Oh my gosh!
Since I was 13. So, yeah.
So it was a live show of ROGUEMAKER, and before we go further, for anybody who was not on the know about ROGUEMAKER, set us up.
Yeah, so ROGUEMAKER is a science fiction audio drama.
Quick, practice!
No, so it is a science fiction audio drama. It takes place in the far future. We're on basically the space version of Ryanair, so very cheap budget space. But it was, completely inspired by my real life experiences on Ryanair. With the, what do they say, with the copyright like worn off. Filed off, serial number filed off. That's the phrase. Anyway, so these people are just going along on their budget space flight, and the alarm starts blaring, and something's wrong with the ship, and everyone has to get in escape pods. And the ship explodes. They're left floating in these escape pods with a malfunctioning radio, an AI who can't hear them, and then occasional intermittent contact with each other as they're all being bombarded by advertisements that the pods do manage to pick up because, you can't see the news article you want to see, but all the ads are loading, right?
Right,
It's like that hellish version of our modern world. But I mean, there's a much larger mystery. It's got an ensemble cast. The cast tries to figure out what happened to their ship and where they're headed now, because they do well. I said we can discuss spoilers at this one, yeah?
If you'd like to, yeah. Just content warning, we're about to talk about some spoilers for all of ROGUEMAKER because ROGUEMAKER is a single standalone series of 10 episodes, which is now complete.
Yes.
Uh-oh, we have some people who haven't listened to the finale yet. Okay, Rebecca, look away!
I won't, I don't have to go that much into like episode 10 specifically, but they get out of the pods. They land on a rogue planet. There are mysteries involving ancient civilizations and things like that. So the show I think Alasdair once described it as just like expanding and expanding in scope.
Oh, it does. It really does.
And hashtag Alasdair's in
it. Yes.
For those of
hashtag Alasdair's in it.
This became a running gag at Audio Drama Hub Podfest for over the 2 days. Every time somebody would talk about a new show, somebody in the audience would wind up yelling, and Alasdair is in it, and it became a running gag. It's probably going to be a new t-shirt. Might have made Kareem a little tiny bit jealous at one point. It was really fun.
He was like, Alasdair's going to be in more things than me at this rate.
Yeah, looking at your DMs over the last 2 days, that may be accurate. But yes, okay, so that's ROGUEMAKER. So yes. Tell us about how you approached the live show, because there were several live shows over the course of the event, and they had differing levels of audience engagement and impact, and yours was very, very good and the
Thank
audience
you.
really, really loved it. So tell us about how you approached putting together a live show.
Yeah. Well, it felt a little weird because I had to reverse engineer it from who I had available. Because ROGUEMAKER does have a very international cast. We have people in California, people up and down the East Coast of the US. We've got 3 of us here in the UK, and then we've got 1 actor in Singapore. So we do have people sort of all over. And I knew I was like, I've got Alasdair who plays Malachi, I've got Bonnie who plays Pascal, and I've got myself who plays Ship available. So I had to come up with some scene that would make sense for these 3. I know a lot of people, when they're making audio drama live shows, will perform things that have already been in the audio drama, but like Wolf 359 at one point did like their first episode again as a live show. I remember they added more to it, but that was like the core of it. But I didn't have any significant long interaction between these 3 characters to fill 10 minutes, so I decided to write something. But I was sort of balancing wanting to make it accessible to people who hadn't heard the show and didn't know anything about these characters, wanting to make it a contained story, and then not wanting to horribly spoil the entire plot of the show if people, you get them interested and then you spoil the end. So it actually does take place after the end of episode 10, yet it manages to not really spoil much because they're talking about another lingering emotional problem that is completely aside from the other problems they were solving in episode 10.
So content warning, ROGUEMAKER full of a lingering emotional problems.
Lots of lingering emotional problems.
I mean, that could describe audio drama as an industry, right? Lingering emotional problems.
But I mean, 10. Forgetting to back up your computer, is that an emotional problem? We're sure going to make it an emotional problem.
What did you describe it as?
The world's most emotionally traumatic IT PSA.
Yes.
And if anyone's wondering in the chat, you will be able to hear this live show. It was recorded. It will be on our feed. I can't tell you when, but it will be there.
Which is fantastic. Right. So one of the other things that we kind of had differing experiences with at Audio Hub was about soundscaping or sound effects for a live show. And you took a particular approach which I thought worked really, really well, which was that there was one sound effect used repeatedly, and it's one of my favorite kinds of jokes in that you use it until it's funny, and then you keep going, and then it becomes funny again. Do you want to? Was that intentional, or was it just, well, if we're gonna do this scene, this is what the effects would be?
I definitely wrote the scene intentionally to require minimal effects, largely because I didn't actually have anyone on board to run sound at that point. I asked Oren as a favor like a few days before we went. So I didn't know if we would be able to run much sound beyond just the theme song, which I figured I could hand to the folks working it there. So I wish I could say that was like a clever artistic choice, but it was more of a, I want this to run smoothly, and I will go with what I know is within our capabilities rather than trying to make something huge and cinematic that is not, like, the timing's not going to work, et cetera, et cetera.
It's one of those situations where necessity makes a feature and not a bug.
What it reminded me of, now I've got a little bit of distance from it, is Robert Rodriguez's 10-minute film school. Because Rodriguez's early stuff is unbelievably low tech. And it's one of those factoids that kind of sticks in my brain. When his debut movie El Mariachi came out, a lot of the reviews praised the natural lighting. And the reason the lighting was natural was they had no lighting budget, so they just shot during daytime. And,
sometimes it'd be like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And once you can steer into that, once you can make something which in other people's hands would be a bug, a feature, suddenly you have this remarkably dense structure to build stuff on. And as a performer, that's the thing which I've always really, really enjoyed about your scripts. There is always something going on. There's usually about 6 things, and some of them are internal and some of them are external. And to see you distill that down into 3 of us on a stage for 10 minutes, and this moment that ties off kind of Malachi's core emotional point and does so in a manner which gives it catharsis, but at the same time isn't there.
You're gonna make me tear up just talking about it. Knock it off.
But at the same time, isn't that kind of, and then everything is fine. It's a kind of, okay, you have to process this. Here's where you start.
Yeah.
Is vastly impressive.
Yeah, it's like something's really gone, but what can we do about it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And during rehearsal, Alasdair, there's like one line that's very simple. It's just like I'm sorry, or something. But you were talking about like how much else is in that line, and I was so glad you were picking that up because you're a great actor. I can turn the compliments back on you. See, you're like I'm analyzing my character. Here's what he's really saying. This is what that means.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it's a great.
It's really fun. I can't wait till people
scene.
get a chance to listen.
And just going back to the no data moment, the thing that I loved about that is it's a laugh and it's genuinely very funny, and also the fact we did that twice and did it live and it synchronized so perfectly, I was so impressed. But at the same time, you get to the end of it, you laugh, and then you realize what he's realized.
Bonnie was just saying in the chat, it's the immediate emotional aftermath, which the audience usually doesn't get to see.
Exactly.
So many stories end with the conclusion of the conflict, not, Bonnie. Ooh, Emma, you still there? Oh dear, we may have lost Emma.
Emma is temporarily frozen. I'm sure the connection will catch up in just a moment.
I'm gonna give a refresh and cross my fingers. Hang on, everybody. Oops. Come back. Are we back? Emma, can you hear us okay? Yes, this is all our fault for making people cry. I seem to have lost Emma. Wendy let's see if we can reach out maybe.
Do I exist again?
You are here, but we have no camera currently.
Okay.
You want to try turning your camera off and then back on again for us?
Welcome back.
Yay! Okay, we fixed
Yay.
it. You're good.
Okay, fingers crossed. I didn't go to the office. I should have. It would have had better Wi-Fi, but
It's okay. It's all right. It's you've been smoked for making us all cry. That's what's going on. We were talking about how Bonnie was saying it's the immediate emotional aftermath of a scene, and how that's kind of rare in a lot of narrative storytelling, because at least the traditional Western form of narrative storytelling is that you resolve the underlying crisis and then everything stops and you don't get how people come to terms with things or adjust to new situations or process what they've just experienced. And this is like a lovely little coda.
Absolutely.
A bittersweet coda. Exactly.
Absolutely.
yeah. In a sense, I feel like that's the sort of thing that often ends up becoming the realm of fan fiction then, because
Very
it often
much
isn't
so.
included. Yeah. That's a little bit what the bonus episodes have felt like for me. It's like it's time to do a character study, time to do something that could be a fanfic.
I find it really interesting that is, how can I put this? That and how well you did it, and you executed all of those really very, very well, kind of speaks to an evolution of form. And it's something with audio drama that I've started to see an awful lot, where you have the central kind of narrative line, but you also have this acknowledgement and acceptance and use, as you say, of types which traditionally would be viewed as fan fiction. And it adds an emotional dimension, it adds character study, and at the same time, it kind of speaks, putting my really cultural analyst head on for a sec, it speaks to the concepts behind fan fiction hitting the mainstream, certainly in podcasting, and the implication that there are new concepts coming up through fan fiction behind them.
Yeah. Mediums and genres and all those lines are getting so blurred as media moves onto the internet. I mean, like Tumblr just made up a movie. It's like
Scorsese's classic.
Scorsese's classic is going to be the interstitials in this week's The Full In. We're giving like the cinematic history of the evolution. For those of you who don't know, Tumblr has invented an undiscovered Martin Scorsese filmed in 1973 film named
Goncharov.
Winter has come to Naples.
It currently has more fan fiction on AO3 than Avatar 4, a major motion picture which released close to a month ago now.
No, you mean the original Avatar, the James Cameron
Avatar from 2009.
It has more than the 2009 Avatar?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Far and
I also
away.
have to say, having been gone this past weekend, I had a lot of catching up to do on Tumblr when I got back. I missed the start of Goncharov. Scrolling down my dash, okay, one post, two posts, somebody's just going off about some weird old movie. Oh my god, what is happening?
What the hell is this? Yeah.
Yeah.
How long was I away?
Yeah.
Far and away the best one I found so far. Someone made a gag about how they had no idea that Linda Carter had a cameo early on in her career in Goncharov. And Linda Carter has a Tumblr account.
Oh.
So she replied to this and went, yeah, here are a couple of stills. Pulled a couple of stills from one of her early movies. Faked up her IMDb page with a credit for Dancer Number 2, Goncharov, Linda Carter.
Serious?
Yes.
She updated her IMDb.
Yes.
Oh,
Legend.
Wow. What a
Legend.
queen.
That's incredible.
Wow.
So
God,
that whole idea of the narrative evolutionary form and what,
and then we got fan fiction, and then people are starting to do art of the fan fiction of the fictional movie, and then they're starting to put it in different cinema. There's been an Akira-esque poster of one montage sequence, and I'm like, this is so and it's so fast. It's been 3 days. This entire thing has been created and iterated and built and gone on, and it's, oh my gosh, it's so crazy.
It's incredible.
It's
which
wonderful.
is why it all makes me very going back to Alasdair's little academia monologue. It all makes me very happy as an interdisciplinary person, because my weird little tagline for myself is too interdisciplinary to function, which is tongue-in-cheek. I know I can function, but to an extent. But that's sort of what I mean is I don't have one or two genres or mediums or subjects or whatever that I do. I just follow whatever interests me. So I've sort of gone into audio drama because I realized it was the right medium for ROGUEMAKER. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm a huge audio drama person. I was just gotta learn audio drama now, and it's been really fun, and I like it. So I'll probably still keep doing audio drama, but it wasn't the intention necessarily, and that's why people
creating the LARP to audio drama pipeline.
God. And that's why people keep saying oh yeah, this bit of ROGUEMAKER is kind of this genre, and I'm like, is it? Okay.
Sweet, good to know.
Good to know. There's people talking about weird and new weird and Weird West as genres, Badlands Cola, which is excellent. People should definitely listen to it. It's got Liz Morey in it.
Weird West is an old genre. That was Deadlands and the original Haunted Spaghetti Westerns, and oh god, I'm so old. I'm sorry.
Probably I just recently came across it because I've only recently gotten deeper into writer circles, and I don't know that readers necessarily come across it as much.
Yeah, we should talk about that too, because audio drama is not the only things we have in common now, is it?
Yeah, we both have been involved with Worldcon, the World Science Fiction Convention, and science fiction and fantasy writers communities. You guys have, of course, been nominated for the Hugo a whole bunch of times. I'm not there yet.
Yet. I'm very proud of you for saying yet. Well done. Well done. But one of the things that's nice about Worldcon from a science perspective is that they're very into science, and so they get academic presentations all the time. This is how we know the astronomer from the Vatican is because he regularly attends Worldcons and things like that. So
that's a weird connection. Yeah,
it is a very weird connection.
For the people of the stream, I was telling these two last weekend that I had at one point nearly met an astronomer from the Vatican, but it was during his sleep shift, so he didn't come out. I was visiting an observatory, and his telescope was one of the ones there. Yeah, the Vatican has official astronomers. I think they have a couple, but which is fascinating to me. but yeah, the World Science Fiction Convention has a science and like research academia programming track. I presented with it in December 2021 at the Washington DC Worldcon, which was very exciting to me because that's sort of where I grew up. So just outside DC.
Nice.
Yeah, the most ridiculous like pulling of strings I've ever done, I think, is that it took like 40 emails and 4 funding sources, but I got the University of St. Andrews to pay for my Christmas trip home last year because I was presenting at Worldcon.
Sweet. Well done.
That is full-on Starfleet Corps of Engineers problem solving. Just
it took so much.
Keep tying stuff together till it works. That's brilliant.
Yeah, and then of course I didn't need a hotel, and the flight wasn't any more expensive if I arrived earlier and left later. So
nice.
Yeah, that was like a stars align moment. But
it's always so nice when you can present a problem like that and do the, well, it doesn't hurt anything if we go this way.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
It was.
This is quite a nice natural pause, actually. We've got an ad break coming up. So
okay.
So woohoo, look at me practicing on this segue. So folks, we're gonna run a little ad break here. It'll probably be 2-3-ish minutes. If you are subject to ads, please feel free to just leave your computer for a moment or two, take a stretch, get some water, attend to any medications, if pets need a snack, all that good stuff. For everybody else, come up with a question for Emma in the chat and we will ask it during the break. So I'm going to push the magical add button, I hope, and see what happens because I'm still learning how to do all of this. Is it happening? It's still thinking. There we go. I think it's running an ad. There we go.
Okay, we're rolling.
So we've got about a little 3-minute break here. I'm trying to think about another good question to ask.
Oh,
I'm going to blow my nose.
Yeah, you do that. I mean, there we go.
Oh, I think we've got some interesting ground to cover talking about the difference between LARP plotting and audio drama plotting. And
or here's a question. What was your favorite thing to learn how to do as you started diving into audio drama land?
Just to say, I still see us on the stream.
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. If you're not seeing an ad, you're not doing anything wrong. Twitch is the one who gets to decide who sees ads and who don't. That process is completely opaque to me.
I did not want everyone to see me blowing my nose. Whoops. Oh well. Sorry, world.
I have had more than one nosebleed on this stream. Trust me.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. Don't worry about it.
They're in good shape. They're fine.
So, favorite thing to learn when you started diving into audio drama?
Yeah. Okay. Favorite thing to learn when I started diving into audio drama. I'm gonna say directing because that one was actually fun, unlike sound design,
which is work.
It's so much work. It's so much work. But directing is fun because you get to like get in the head of all these different characters and think about their motivations and then think about a way to communicate them to the actor that isn't just attempting to do the line and then having them do a pale imitation of you. That was what Rook taught me not to do because I was initially doing that. So Rook was my teacher in that art of directing and I find it very fun now. Sound design has its moments. It's just a lot of tedium in between. If anyone's interested in learning sound design, the way I did it is I got Reaper, which is a digital audio workstation. It can be scary because it's highly, highly customizable, which means it isn't immediately intuitive necessarily. But I found there's plenty of YouTube tutorials, and I found one that was like, here's how to set it up if you're editing like dialogue, like people's voices, because the automatic setup will be for music, and that's not what I was doing. So I set it up like that, watched 1 or 2 more tutorial videos, and then just pretty much figured it out. I could have watched more tutorials, and that would have saved me from things like only 5 or 6 episodes into editing ROGUEMAKER, realizing that I could have more than one project open at once. But it has its moments with like when you just realize that, oh, if I just pan this sound, it's so much cooler. Or if I had a low pass filter here, or like fade this out, or this thing that is totally not what it is meant to be sounds just right for what it is meant to be. Like the bits where people are rolling their pods, I'm very proud of those sound effects. Like where Alice is rolling the pod and like bangs into the wall, and then Tarsel's pod. That is a globe spun very fast and then pitched really down.
Nice.
It's a globe.
I love
See,
that.
I think that's the favorite thing for me about sound design is like, okay, I know what it sounds like in my head. What can I find that's close? And or do a thing and then modify it to get somewhat sort of close.
It's a search term thing. If you don't know the search terms, you're completely screwed. When I was the beginning of episode 8, where John is flying all over the place trying to like pick up people from the like crumbling towers of bits of the planet, etc., etc. I was looking for like spaceship flying noises, and I kept searching on free sound because I did everything on free sound because money, don't know her.
Yeah, exactly.
I was Googling spaceship or searching spaceship flying, and nothing was coming up. But I was asking a friend who was a more experienced sound designer, and he's like, what you want is engine pass by or engine acceleration. And I searched those, and that came up with exactly what I needed.
It's all about
love
learning search terms.
Yeah, I thought flying spaceship was obvious.
The one thing I wish Freesound would let you do, I mean, they do have this feature where you can like go in and say, hey, I used your sound, thank you, here's my thing. But if they would allow tagging with that so that people could say, I used this for a spaceship sound.
Like TikTok does with sounds.
That would be so nice.
Yeah, because I bet a lot of people will upload it as, globe spinning. And then everybody in the comments is like, oh yeah, I use this for my boulders going down the hill or whatever, which is not what it is. But yeah. So that was really fun. Free sound is of course free. Reaper is it's $60 to have it.
I should point out that not everything on Freesound is free. So all the sounds are available and accessible, but they have different use licenses.
Putting the lawyer hat on.
Yes, very much so. So you have to look for things that say CC0, i.e. this is free to use for everybody, because a lot of sounds up there are available with different attribution licenses, and that gets complicated. But okay, I'm just going to boil this down. Be careful.
CC by 3.0 and CC by 4.0 is okay if you attribute it in a certain way. So I used 0s, 3s, and 4s, and I attributed the 0s still, even though I didn't need to.
That's good. It's good practice. That's the other thing to say. When you're sound designing, have a little file open that is, I'm using this one link. I'm using this one link. It will save you so much time.
It was the most annoying part of sound design. But for all of you, if you look in the like little episode notes of any ROGUEMAKER episode, you can click and there's a gigantic list of all the sound effects I've used, and you can see what the person who uploaded them titled them. And I think it's very entertaining to scroll through and just see all these really fucking weird titles half the time.
I'm gonna have to go look up globe spinning now.
Yeah,
exactly. I'm gonna pull an element of what we've been talking about out. This is something which Rook and I haven't rehearsed, but Rook is about to go fuck yeah in the chat, which is you embody one of the most fundamentally ethical approaches to doing this work it has ever been my privilege to encounter. Rook's talked about this on Twitter. You make sure everyone who has contributed in any way, shape, or form gets credited.
Bonnie goes, yes!
And I don't think you can talk about that enough.
Nope.
Because there is so much of a tendency across... See, there we are. Yeah! There is so much of a tendency across all forms of kind of communal creative endeavor to pay attention to the top two people. I write about comics an awful lot. And I am one of the 5 reviewers on Earth who bothers to talk about inkers and letterers. And without those two, the book doesn't exist.
Yep.
And podcasting and audio drama is exactly the same. You take one person out of the stack, and the stack collapses. And the fact that you, on your very first project in the field, have done an exemplary job of making sure everyone comes along for the ride I sincerely believe is one of the reasons why.
That they have 25 Audioverse nominations.
Just what I was about to say. We didn't rehearse any of that.
We don't rehearse.
None of it.
Rehearsal?
Well-oiled machine.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, there are people who did, very small contributions, and some of the voices of specifically the ad segments and all the like intrusive bits that people hear in the pods in the first 2 episodes, a lot of those were recorded way back when ROGUEMAKER was a LARP. And so that was like a friend of mine a year and a half before it started coming out as a show, recording into their cell phone mic, and I'm still gonna put them in there for like 2 or 3 words. It's this is gonna sound like a cop-out. Honestly, I think my anxiety is the reason I do that. At least it's a part of what's spurring me to do that. I was like, no, I can't. I have to do it right. I can't leave anybody out.
Exactly. And it's one of the things I really love about audio drama as a community. And we talked a lot about it in the various panels over Audio Drama Hub Fest. The fact that so much of the culture, the baseline assumptions about how you do something, what is considered the right way to do something, is about inclusivity, attribution, sustainability. We're all broke. We all know that, and we all
pass around the same $10.
And we're all gonna, make sure that we're doing this in a healthy way, a sustainable way, with sharing the load and bringing more people along with it. Was really, really wonderful to hear.
Yeah, and it was to the point where my initial draft for the credit read of ROGUEMAKER, I think I had even recorded the first, and then I realized I'd completely forgotten to credit for sound design. I was like, which is a big one. I was like, it was because it was me again. And I was like, oh no, I don't want to, how can I order these so I don't have to say my name twice in a row?
Yep.
But ultimately I was like, no, I will bite the bullet and have my name in there more, because sound design is too big a thing to not credit.
We're noticing more of a trend of that just in general, right? I mean, there are several crowdfunders running almost at all times these days for different audio dramas. And there's starting to be more journalistic discussion about, look, we know that the actors are usually recognizable names and it's a prestigious role, but so much more of the value of a podcast and audio drama in particular is in its sound design. Why aren't those people getting more recognition or pay? Because they will probably spend a lot more time than necessarily an individual voice actor will.
Yeah. As someone who has sort of accidentally, and it was not my goal to become a sound designer, but I have done it in the past year. A sound designer absolutely deserves the highest pay, up there with writer. And I'm quite frankly, as someone who has done both those roles, I debate myself as to which of those two should get higher pay. But it's writer or sound designer, one of them.
I think there's a strong case for sound designer.
Yeah, sheer hours.
Sheer hours, and the amount of times I have dropped something on a sound designer's desk and gone, this is
behold my
baby.
Audio garbage baby.
Behold my audio garbage baby. It is so very sick.
You want to talk about unsung heroes of audio drama? Dialogue editors. People who can take all of the different takes of dialogue from different people and get all the pacing right, and the ums and the coughs and the pauses, and whew, lordy, that is a heck of a skill. And one of the things that David Devereaux talked about during their interview, which really sat with me, is if you want to get more proficient at that things, do nonfiction dialogue editing for things like interviews, and it pays better.
Yeah,
which is a great way.
It shows you what I guess real interruptions in a conversation and like overlapping dialogue is one of the biggest things you have to learn when you're doing dialogue editing, because often if I've got 2 actors on a call and they're both remote recording themselves, they might not cut each other off as much because they want to make sure the other person gets their line out. So then I will have to, in the dialogue edit, scooch them around so it's a better cutoff. And if you're working with nonfiction stuff, you're hearing some real natural dialogue, to the extent that anything on a podcast is natural dialogue, you're hearing more naturalistic dialogue and you can get a better sense of those timings, I think. So I definitely, they had a lot of really good takes in their presentation. I think they have an Indie AF episode as well, David Devereaux, if anyone wants to listen to that and get some sound design and dialogue editing wisdom.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite presentations of the week.
Dev did also give us one of my favorite running gags ever, where I forget what the first one was, but at one point they said, showed my ass a little bit there. And then 3 or 4 times throughout the rest of the talk at random, they go, my whole ass. Look.
Yeah.
I just mind putting it down and carrying on. It's great.
Yeah, that was really, really good.
Yeah.
And I think there's the balancing the naturalistic tendency of people, especially in emotive situations, to interrupt, talk over each other, interrupt each other, with what is ultimately, a stage play for your ears. So clarity and individuality and conveying information are quite important. And so it's like, I have to let it sound a little bit like you interrupted, but just a little bit, because otherwise people won't be able to hear. Or if you're going to do something really that complex, you're getting into, very avant-garde sort of sound design.
I mean, that's yet another one of the things about your scripts that blew me away. Because you have 10 cast members. And none of us are bit players. We all have arcs. We all talk quite a lot.
12, really.
12,
talk
right?
a lot?
And each one of those characters is distinct, and each one of those characters is vocally distinct. And by the end of the show, we've all got some emotional catharsis. And that is staggering. There are 10-year-old TV shows that finished without managing to do that.
Yeah, that was something we worked a lot on in the script edits. Is Shione, one of the script editors in particular, was like, you've got a lot of characters. They needed to pick a vocal tick, pick some distinction for each of them, and stick with it. So Kusa doesn't use contractions much. Kazuma says like all the time. That's probably the most obvious one. John says, and ends things in a question a lot. Malachi very rarely says I, or me.
I missed that. Damn, you're good.
It does come up sometimes because it's very hard to write a character that never says I or me, but I try to avoid it if I at all could.
Now might be a good time to admit as well that I spent the entirety of our recording sessions picturing John in some kind of space onesie, because given the circumstances in which he meets everyone else, I kind of saw him as this amiable, mildly criminal Linus. There is a space blanket in one hand. There's a onesie. There's probably a juice box somewhere. And the fact that he spent the entire show just going, "What? Don't touch my stuff." Oh, come on. He's so endearing.
I will make the canonical creator decision that John does sleep with a blankie.
Thank you. And thank you for the correction, Rebecca. So John is, I believe, they, them. So
he, they. So you're good.
Cool.
Oh, okay. And I would just also like to say that there's a complete insufficiency of Malachi fan fiction.
And fan art.
And fan art.
So
There's no Malachi ship fan art. Give it to me! I will feature it on the Signal Boost, please.
If anyone out there is feeling inspired, I will also say, wow, you're getting lots of weird little tidbits today. I never state this. I do think Ship probably has some sort of like little avatar that appears on a screen, at least in the flight. And I think it's probably customizable, like a video game thing. Like you can dress it up for holidays.
Oh, that's the cutest thing. I love that.
Oh no!
Like this is the Halloween skin.
Malachi's
or this is
downloading holiday gift packs for Ship.
This is the First Contact Day skin. This is the new Blades of Dust movie has come out skin.
Wendy is Ship is Chungus. Hello? Ship is Chungus.
Ship is Chungus.
I mean, I'm just gonna say there was really no choice about what Chungus would be wearing this evening.
Yeah, the Among Us craze was like well timed with when I was like writing and brainstorming this very Among Us show.
Okay, so now we need fan art of the entire crew of ROGUEMAKER in Among Us costumes as well, please.
Yeah,
Okay,
oh
fan
gosh.
artists.
I feel like if I knew more about Among Us, I could say like, oh yeah, Alice would play like this color, but I don't know like because people
think
who were
that-
really into Among Us definitely like made characters for like the purple one is blah blah blah, the blue one is blah blah blah, but I was never that deep in Among Us.
I wasn't either. I always thought of the color as just like random assigned for player, but what was important was like the customization. Like
True.
Spacer, I hardly know we're 69.
Yeah.
Like, you know, are you wearing the bowler hat or do you have the cowboy hat or like the overalls or different things like that? I'm just saying I need a lot of fan art. Okay, that's what I'm saying.
You have needs.
We have gotten some truly excellent fan art. There's some really great designs for the Gnonu out there.
Sweet.
Yeah, which is incredible because I was very purposely vague on what they look like. That is to say, almost nothing. So some people have made some very creative designs.
Love it. Absolutely love it. What else do you want to talk about? We could talk about
Were there more
everything.
questions?
Oh yeah, let's maybe throw this to the chat for a moment or two and give people a chance to ask questions. I think there was another one that I missed a little while ago.
Yeah.
If I scroll back.
I wanted to talk briefly about your direction style because...
Oh, Corvid says, what was it like working with me? Please don't actually answer this.
It was amazing. No one shall escape uncomplimented.
Yes, I love you, Rook. We've been working together for years in some way, shape, or form. I would not have brought you on this project if I did not enjoy working with you.
There we go.
I want to talk real quick about the directing style the two of you have because I've never been directed by two people at once before, and it's kind of amazing. Basically,
Don't give Naomi ideas.
Oh, I'm absolutely giving Naomi ideas because Naomi and
Mick.
you know, and I know his name.
I'm helping. Stuff.
Naomi and Mick do something very similar, and the thing which I find really interesting about the two shows, both of which are extensive Audioverse finalists, by the way. Did I mention that? The thing I find really interesting about both shows is Naomi will kill again.
Now he's going on a tangent.
Is that there is what I like to refer to as a remarkably flat team structure. There is no sense of I'm the showrunner, I've written it, you will do it this way or it won't fucking work. And that's not that I've ever had that, but it's very, very easy to tip over into it. And the thing which I find fascinating about both shows is how collaborative you all are. You know, there is an incredible level of trust in your performance. And the fact that I was able to bring a couple of things to Malachi that actually were incorporated into the script means a huge amount. And you guys are kind of the gold standard now. Anything which I record from here on out, if it's not two people, then I kind of look at it slightly sideways. And
why?
Because there's a sense of covering more ground. And the thing which you and Rook did in particular was, Rook was very good at kind of overall emotional trajectory. And you're extraordinarily good at line by line. You've given me some of the best line by line direction I've ever had. Where, I've hit something and it's been about 80% there. And you've got, if you trade this way, that works even better. And this is all a very roundabout way of saying the fact that this is your first time in the field is ridiculous. And please do more because you're both incredibly good at it.
Well, there was a question in the chat related to, hold on a second, I have to, please talk about converting LARP stories to podcast stories. Totally not asking this with potential future LARP adaptation.
Of course not.
You are inventing the LARP to audio drama pipeline here, please.
If anyone else has done it, I'd love to take a listen. But I think that's actually why our directing style is the way you were talking about just there, Alasdair, is because it did come from a LARP. And before this, the majority of the creative writing I'd done was LARP, which is very much, I've written this character, I hand it to you. Sorry, I watched too much Survivor, so now I'm thinking this is the point in the game where the power shifts to the jury. It's no longer mine. Here's the character sheet. Do what you will, interpret as you will, etc. I mean, I recognize that's in some senses more work for the actors. So I think we tried to handle it in a like engage as much as you want each individual actor kind of way. We could and did do that more traditional style of directing when we felt that was what the actor wanted. But if they seemed up for I don't know, getting deep into the emotional lore of their character, we were there for that, and seeing what they wanted to put in. But I think that does come directly from the fact that it was a LARP, really.
There's a comment in here from Dr. Loop saying, I reckon we could do the audio drama to LARP pipeline as well. And
yeah.
Sounds.
Yeah, very possibly. Yeah, we've chatted about LARP stuff on a couple UK audio fiction meetups. But yeah, so the process of converting it from the LARP to the audio drama was writing it down and deciding on an ending.
I was gonna say, do you have the Mass Effect 3 problem where you're like, I have to pick a canonical choice for each character, as opposed to being able to say, behold your seed, go forth and grow?
Yes, except that the LARP ended right around where the end of episode 4 is in the show. So there really didn't, like, there existed multiple interpretations of each character, but there didn't exist endings beyond that. I knew so the LARP ends with John, who was played by Roke at the time, contacting everybody over radio, and saying you're down there on the planet, and like everyone can be rescued, but everybody at that point, the information should have spread from person to person about the nature of the rogue planet and the rogue maker, etc., etc. So then they have to sort of grapple with the ethics of what are we going to do. So the audio drama really picks up from where the LARP ended and is like, okay, what if everyone did actually land on the planet and they all have to figure out what to do from there? I think in an ideal world, I would have liked to play it as a LARP in 2 parts, one of which was the original way the LARP was, which is everyone is remote, it's on Discord, it's audio only, headphones in, you can close your eyes if you want, you're just talking over the radio. And then part 2 would be in person on the Titan. I think that would be the ideal way to play it as a LARP.
I now have a new career aspiration. I want to play an NPC, LARP that like is a quest giver that's based on an audio drama that I've played a character.
Okay.
That sounds awesome.
Duly noted.
Like, you're the guy in the video game with the big yellow thing over your head. You're like, you come to me and I do my little shtick and I tell you what to do and off you go. That sounds fun.
It's one of my favorite memes, the shot of the cat in the rainbow with the caption, "This cat has a quest for you."
Right? Exactly.
Yeah, you can just tell. Yeah.
I do love how the Becca run the Magnus LARP with me. I cannot book venues.
Oh my God, yeah. Well, if you do it online, you don't have to book a venue.
That's... In fact, you did that quite recently, didn't you?
This weekend, whilst we were at Audio Drama Hub Podfest Conapalooza, my friend Jax, who is an incredibly good tabletop RPG designer and has actually written for my game, got clearance to do a Silk versus LARP on Discord.
Ooh. Oh my gosh.
So it ran for 2 days. I misscheduled myself. The original plan was I was going to be doing it live. And then when I realized it was the same weekend as Podfest at Palooza, we were able to gear shift. So I just recorded my sections. But I and Lehman Kessler, the voice of Ask Lovecraft and America's Finest Mayor, played brothers who worship 2 particular deities who were quest givers and NPC information providers. Lehman went all in. He had costumes, he had backdrops, the whole thing. And between him doing it live and me providing these kind of field reports, we pushed quite a lot of this game along. It was amazing.
Okay, we need more online LARPs that I can play, please.
Okay.
Yeah. And I love that the audio drama to LARP pipeline already exists.
It's a
Right?
thing. It's a
Okay.
thing.
We
Yeah.
need more of this. I obviously need more of this in my life. Please let me LARP from home where my screen is this big and that's all the costume I have to do, and I don't have to camp in the mud. That would be lovely.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are choose your own adventure style audio dramas, right? That feels LARPish, or at least I don't know if they're to that extent, but there are at least ones where they're referring to you, the listener, are the character.
Yeah, there's the second person ones, but I think that's what we're gonna see next, because that's what television is starting to do. Is it Netflix? Kaleidoscope is doing a new television series that has 6 or 8 episodes where they will be served to you all at once, but everybody will receive it in a random order, and the story is designed to be put together no matter what order you watch all the disparate episodes. And of course, there are Choose Your Own Adventure prose novels, and there's plenty of gaming narrative branching experiences. Scarlet Hollow, our beloved, will be here next week. I want to see audio start to do these. Where you're taking those sorts of, you can listen to any episode at any time and you assemble the story as you go along kind of experiences. I think we're going to start seeing people experimenting with those. I'm pretty dang sure.
Yeah.
Which I can't wait for. The audio drama LARP pipeline is real!
Yeah. The biggest challenge, though, seriously, was just writing an ending, because a LARP is a medium in which you do not have to write an ending, and anyone who has written a story can tell you ending's hard.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sticking them harder. There are so many things out there. It's like, I love the premise. They did not get the ending right.
I kind of have 2 responses to that. I finally saw a horror movie called Smile recently. And having worked
have a drink
semi-professionally around horror for a long, intimidatingly long time, there is very little I hate more, besides obviously random lady murder, than the end. Or is it? And Smile is genuinely the first horror movie I've seen in about 10 years that nails the end, or is it? And it was really, really nice to see. And I absolutely feel your pain about finding endings. And I think we talked about this a little bit over the weekend. The hack I found that works is the pro wrestling approach, which is you write the ending first.
Yeah.
And you work backwards from that point. And then if you do it right, people go, wow, that was really well foreshadowed. And you're like, was it?
Yeah.
Great. Smoke bomb.
Yep. Go back, make it look like you knew what you were doing the whole time.
Absolutely.
No, I mean, I knew where I was going, but so I had written like a paragraph or 2 of this is the overall plot, because I tried to write ROGUEMAKER as a novel, and then I realized it was just too much dialogue and too many people sitting in locations. It didn't work in that format. But I had written the first 3,000 words of that, and then I was taking it to a writing workshop, which meant I had to have a query letter draft and I had to have a 500-word synopsis, which are the worst things ever to write.
Those are the hard parts.
You're terrible.
That is hell. That is a
but
descent into hell itself.
It is, but I had a 500-word synopsis, which is great because I will never do that normally. This might surprise people because I think people generally assume I'm very organized, and I am very organized, but I'm also a pantser. There's the 2 types of writers, plotters who will have spreadsheets and they'll write everything out and they'll plan everything meticulously, and there's pantsers who are like, blank page, let's go, flying by the seat of my pants is where that comes from. So I just wrote it all in order, and then I went back and reread it and added things. Like episode 1 got the most retooled after having written the whole thing in order, because I was like, nope, it can't start here. I need to do more setup. People need to at least say hi to every character before they all get shunted off into the pods. Originally it just had Woe and Loki and Malachi talking, and then I added that Malachi goes around and talks to all the other passengers bit. Otherwise, you wouldn't meet them till episode 2 or 3.
See, I've just now figured out that you do the exact thing that Dirk Maggs talked about in his keynote over the weekend, where that entire sequence is a tracking shot. and you're following one character as they make their way around and introducing everybody else. And did I mention you're very good at this? Because you're very good at this.
It was a tracking shot. Everybody else was slightly panned to the sides. Malachi was center of the audio track for that one.
Nice.
I love the little humming. I love that like little 30-second bit that's just goes into the little galley, presses the space Keurig, he's humming, and then he brings out the tray with it. There's no dialogue. I love that bit. That was fun sound design.
Space coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Coffee and space.
I can honestly say there is no line I have enjoyed more, and I enjoyed every line you gave me, than in the Malachi bonus episode where he comes aboard for the first time, looks at the awful grease pit that Tarsal has been somehow flying around the galaxy, and you gave me this amazing direction in the script, which is the next line is spoken with all the optimism and determination of a Studio Ghibli protagonist. And the next line is just, well, I'd best get to work. And I had this beautiful image in my mind the whole time we were doing that, of a Ghibli cleaning montage, just on a really crappy intergalactic space bus.
And Malachi is obviously in some sort of apron, branded,
yes.
crappy apron.
Possibly a bandana.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Rolls up the sleeves. Like,
Yep.
let's go. Yeah.
Sophie's, Malachi's Sophie from Howl's Moving Castle moment.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. That's
Very
honestly,
much so.
I think that the Rook's transcripts are freaking amazing. Round of applause to Rook for the transcripts, but I am sad they don't have the Rileys because there's a lot of really good ones. Riley's being the stage direction, like with all the strength and optimism of a Ghibli heroine.
Nice. Very
Oh,
nice.
yeah.
But that is made up for with Rook's funny comments in addition about how the music sounds.
Love it. This has been really, really fun. Thank you so much for coming and chatting with us.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you the question everybody hates being asked, but which I'm contractually obliged to, which is, what's next?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Sleep, then.
Sleep, obviously.
Yes. I've been catching up on a lot of TV now that I don't have to edit audio every single night when I come home.
Amazing.
So that's been really nice. I don't know.
What are you watching?
What am I watching? I'm rewatching a bunch of old seasons of Survivor.
Good choice.
Okay.
Very good choice.
That's a weird fact about me, is that I started watching Survivor when it started airing, when, sorry to make people feel old, but when I was 5, and I've watched it ever since then, and I've watched every season.
Wow.
Yeah, it's our family thing. We all watch Survivor together, so we text about it in the family group chat and everything.
That is the cutest thing I've heard all month. That's amazing.
Wendy says, can you say something about the music? Because The Wanderer's Lament.
Yes. I do also have an answer for what's next, but I can say that in a bit. ROGUEMAKER, music. I think one of the most innovative things that we did with ROGUEMAKER is the way music is in the show. It's someone described it as, it's not a musical, but it's not a musical. There are more full-blown songs than you would expect for most pieces of media. I think I was inspired there by a couple other audio dramas that are set in space and use music very powerfully, like The Strange Case of Starship Iris.
Mm-hmm.
There's this really cool scene in episode 1 where characters are singing Whiskey in the Jar. There's this scene in the movie Gravity from 2013 with Sandra Bullock, where she gets in radio contact with this guy down on Earth who's singing a lullaby to his baby.
Yep.
And that scene I was bawling. I couldn't see the screen properly in the theater because my vision was so blurry from the tears. So I just think space, when the loneliness of it, makes music even more powerful. So that was specifically for Wanderer's Lament, the sad folk song in episode 1. That was specifically the inspiration for that. But I also just wanted to include music in general. And I was able to do that because we have an incredible composer, Emily Branham, and incredible voice actors playing the 2 bandmates. And so it also just uses the other inspiration for how the show uses music is Steven Universe, which is a cartoon, and which is more it's closer to a musical than ROGUEMAKER is for sure, but there are also plenty of episodes of Steven Universe with just no music, and then just occasionally the characters burst into song. And so I think you can do more. You don't have to be fully a musical or not a musical. You can exist in that in between. But the actual process for it was I wrote the lyrics, but I didn't do anything else. And Emily tweaked the lyrics, if anything. She was like, oh, it's easier to like sustain a note with this vowel than that vowel. So I'm going to change this word. I'm like, all right, cool. So long as you keep the meaning, fine with that. Or like, I'm going to cut the number of syllables here, et cetera, et cetera. But I basically handed her a weird poem and then was like, this one is a haunting folk song, or this one is like really sugary, upbeat, melodramatic pop song that would be at home on the Eurovision stage. And she's like, okay, and then works her magic.
Love it.
Yeah, and got Alex and Omar to sing. They both live close enough to each other that they were able to get together in person to record Super Casanova, which is the only bit of ROGUEMAKER that was recorded with multiple actors in the same room. Fun tidbit. Only Super Casanova.
Nice.
And all of these songs.
Future like audio drama quiz question.
What was the one scene in ROGUEMAKER which was recorded with actors in the same physical space?
Yeah, Super Casanova outshine the galaxy, which is true. Supernovas do briefly outshine galaxies when they explode. So that's fun.
Science nerd.
Yeah. What
okay,
else is
so what's next?
What's next? I don't know. I can't. So ROGUEMAKER was intended to be a standalone one season. I can't say it won't be because I am turning ideas around for like extending it. So I can't say there won't be a season 2. I can't say there will be a season 2, but it's a thing that I have to think about and then would have to write the entirety of before we do anything else on. I'd also be interested in writing other audio dramas. I have ideas about a bunch of people stuck at a remote astronomy observatory, so that would be my astronomer hat again, but then completely different subject. I wrote a LARP about the Flying Dutchman, like the legend of the ghost ship.
Nice.
And that I think could make a really cool audio drama as well.
So.
The only commonality.
I know an actor who's quite good at sea captains.
Gee, I wonder who that could be. Lonely sea captains,
quite
who
lonely.
have been stuck sailing the 7 seas for all of eternity.
Quite fond of fog,
Mm-hmm.
Nice coats.
A sickly green one that follows the ship everywhere it goes. Yeah.
Hashtag and Alasdair is in it. Yes, exactly.
And Alasdair was in it. Yeah. Yeah, I was saying.
People are like, can we have the ROGUEMAKER version of Eurovision, please? This Cirrus Revel 6.
Oh God. See, again, the secret is that Emily does all the music stuff, and I do not want to sign her up to do that. I would be all for. I love Eurovision.
Bonnie is also mentioned in the chat that 6 ROGUEMAKER songs were Audioverse finalists.
Yes.
6 different tracks.
Wow.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some of the instrumentals are in there, and you don't even have to open up the ballot to click them. If you just look at the 2022 list of finalists and you click the track title, it'll take you to somewhere where you can hear it. So this is actually the first chance that you've all had to hear the entirety of the radio edit of Super Casanova, because that's not how it appears in the actual show.
Ooh, nice.
It appears half a cappella and then half through a weird phone recording. But they will all eventually be made available like properly, not just through an Audioverse click. We will be having an album forthcoming.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Also, absolutely my next question. So well done.
Anticipating.
Fantastic. So more audio drama album, definitely.
More audio drama. Also, I'm finishing my PhD.
I mean, while you're at it.
Amazing.
I do. I mean, I have a couple publications out there that are like nonfiction. They're academic-y, but of course they're about science fiction that you can find in various science fiction magazines and adjacent. I have weird publishing locations, which probably isn't surprising given the weird interdisciplinary thing. But I've got a paper in Strange Horizons, an article. I've got something in Yeah, it was such a good experience working with Strange Horizons. It's in their special issue on extractivism and science fiction. Extractivism being resource extraction, so exploiting the Earth's resources in sort of an unsustainable way. Except this is not the Earth, this is asteroids and other planets, et cetera, et cetera. It pops up all the time in science fiction. Of course, it pops up in ROGUEMAKER. And I think a lot of sci-fi works don't critically examine it well enough. They just kind of are like,
and wait, there's unlimited resources, et cetera, et cetera.
that's fine and ethical. Yeah, that's great. So that's what that paper is about. I've got one in the British Science Fiction Association's journal, Vector, about the process of getting a bunch of scientists and sci-fi writers together to write short stories for an anthology that all had dedicated science consultants.
Yes, which is a great idea.
Yeah, so that was super fun. That's a book that exists, which is wild.
Wow.
Around the Suns. Nice.
Wendy also mentioned in the chat that you collect exoplanets.
I do collect exoplanets. So my research is so exoplanets are planets outside of our solar system. So anything that isn't orbiting the sun. And they were actually only discovered in the 90s, which is much more recent than most people think. But they're very difficult to detect observationally, which means they were only discovered observationally, like confirmation that they exist in the 90s. However, there's plenty of science fiction from before that about exoplanets and plenty of science fiction from after that about exoplanets. So I have this database where I collect exoplanets that appear in fiction, and I do data science-y things on them to figure out which characteristics of them influence each other, because I'm interested in how scientific information travels from scientists to the public through the intermediary of science fiction creators. Because it's
tell me that's your PhD.
Yes, that's my PhD.
Okay, good.
Amazing.
Phew. I'm like, that is an amazing topic.
Yeah. So the pinned tweet on my Twitter, it will take you to a Google form where you can submit any science fiction exoplanet you've come across to my database.
We will put that in the show notes because I know a lot of science fiction writers who might want to contribute their exoplanet.
Yeah,
also,
please
Wendy
do.
would very much like to read your PhD.
We would all like to read your PhD when it's done, please.
So would I once it exists.
Yes, exactly.
It should be coming mid-2024.
Right. Also, Rebecca says, I recently realized that the asteroid belt scans to the Erie Canal, and now I want to do a filk of that song about blue-collar space miners.
Ooh. Yeah, I will also say just that my general love of filk is also what inspired the music in ROGUEMAKER.
Nice.
Fantastic.
And then the other secret was to just surround yourself with musically talented people, because I am not that the exit. I put that in there because I wanted to be in a song, but I can't sing.
That's valid. So a PhD, a concept wrap-up album, maybe a sequel, carving the audio drama to LARP pipeline. Just a few light hobbies for the next couple of years.
That's amazing.
That's the plan. That's the plan. Maybe by the time season 2 comes out, we can say doctor.
Yahoo! Or at the very least, we're gonna throw you a heck of a party.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, we will have you back on.
No, we'll just go up there.
And then we'll live stream it. It'll be great.
We'll live stream it. Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, please come to Scotland.
Yes.
By all means.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
It's a beautiful town, St. Andrews. 3 beaches, the ocean, ruins.
Okay, you had me at beaches.
I was going to say, you see the eyebrows?
But there's sand on them, not rocks, right?
Yes, sand.
Beaches?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There's also rocks, but it's mostly sand. Yeah. I've never lived so close to the ocean, and it's really, really incredible.
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm. And I really miss it too. So you must indulge for me.
Yeah.
Rightio. Should we wrap this up and take a little break?
I think we should. Emma, thank you so much.
This has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming along and chatting with us, and for just being a generally brilliant creator.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me. It was lovely to meet you all in person last weekend. And to the stream, thank you all for listening. And be sure to check out the Audioverse Awards list of finalists. Listen to all those ROGUEMAKER songs.
Yes.
as you prep for submitting your ballot.
When are the ballots due by?
I
think
do
it's
not
like
know. We
the
need to look into that.
December 5th.
Thank
well
you.
done. Fantastic. And it can take a little bit of time to put a ballot together because there's a bunch of categories and I believe they use ranked voting.
Mm-hmm.
So, set yourself some time. I think the Kilda crew were talking about maybe doing a stream of like walking people through how to work the ballot.
That's a
one
great
time.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can pause and come back whenever. You can just put in your email at the top and they'll send you a link where you can go and continue.
And their site can be a little
Pretty
janky
janky.
and
Yeah.
fall
Mhm.
over. So give yourself plenty of time and do it in chunks, but by all means, do participate. Okay,
Yeah.
everybody, we're going to say goodnight to Emma really quick, and we're going to run an ad break while we're away. So this is your chance to go and take a stretch and all that good stuff, and then we will be back for some shenanigans.
Bye, folks.
Bye.
Emma Penguin says bye.